Have you ever had one of those days? A day where a single critical email from your boss can completely ruin your evening. Or maybe a project you poured your heart into doesn't get the praise you expected, and suddenly, you feel worthless. Hollow. It's a strange and heavy feeling, isn't it? The way our mood, our confidence, and even our sense of self can be so completely tied to what happens between 9 and 5. We've all been told to work hard, to strive for excellence, to climb the ladder. And there is nothing inherently wrong with that. Ambition can be a powerful, positive force. But somewhere along the way, a dangerous shift happens for many of us. The line between, I do good work, and, I am good because I do good work, begins to blur. Our professional achievements stop being something we do, and start becoming who we are. This is the subtle, creeping trap of tying your self-worth to your work. It's a foundation built on shaky ground. Because if your value as a person rests entirely on your job title, your salary, or your latest performance review, what happens when those things change? What happens when you get laid off? When a project fails? When you get a new manager who doesn't see your value? Or when you simply have an off week? If your identity is your job, then any threat to your job becomes a threat to your very core. This isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's a deep-seated cultural phenomenon. We live in a society that constantly asks, "So, what do you do?" It's often the first question we ask a stranger. We've conflated our occupation with our identity. Our productivity with our personhood. Think about it like an investment portfolio. If you put all your money into a single stock, you're taking a huge risk. If that one stock plummets, you lose everything. A wise investor diversifies. They spread their assets across many different areas. Tying your worth to your work is like having an identity portfolio with only one stock in it. And that stock is your job. So, when that stock is doing well, when you get a promotion, a raise, or a compliment, you feel on top of the world. You're soaring. But when it performs poorly, the crash is devastating. It feels personal, because you've made it personal. This is the exhausting roller coaster of performance-based value. It's a cycle of soaring highs and crushing lows, all determined by factors that are often outside of our control. And the pressure to maintain those highs is immense. It leads to burnout, as we sacrifice our health, our sleep, and our relationships to prove our worth over and over again. It fuels imposter syndrome, that nagging fear that we'll be found out as a fraud, that our success is just a fluke that could vanish at any moment. It makes it impossible to truly rest. Even on vacation, our minds are worrying, checking emails, worrying about what we're missing. Because if we aren't being productive, who are we? This isn't a sustainable way to live. It's a recipe for chronic anxiety and a fragile sense of self. So, how do we break free? How do we begin the crucial work of untangling our value from our vocation? It starts with a fundamental shift in perspective. It's about understanding that your worth is not something you earn. It's inherent. You had worth before you got your first job, and you will have worth long after you retire from your last one. Your worth is not a bonus check. It's not a corner office. It's not a head of or senior vice president in your LinkedIn profile. There's a fascinating piece of ancient wisdom, found in a letter written nearly 2,000 years ago, that offers a powerful psychological framework for this. It's from the book of Colossians, and you don't need to be religious at all to appreciate the profound truth it holds for our modern work lives. The line is this: whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Let's set aside the theology for a moment and look at the pure psychology of this statement. It presents two revolutionary ideas for decoupling our worth from our work. First, work at it with all your heart. This phrase speaks to the idea of effort, of diligence, of pouring your best self into what you do. It finds dignity not in the outcome, but in the process. It suggests that there is honor in doing your job well, whether you're a CEO or a cashier, a software engineer, or a street sweeper. The value is in the excellence of your effort. Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say, succeed at all costs. It doesn't say, get the promotion. It doesn't say, earn the most praise. It says to work with all your heart. This shifts the focus from external validation to internal integrity. You can control your effort. You can control your attitude. You can control your dedication. You often cannot control the outcome. You can't control how your boss will react, how the market will shift, or whether a client will be happy. When you place your sense of pride in your effort, you reclaim your power. You can go home at the end of the day, and even if the project was a flop or your boss was in a bad mood, you can say to yourself, I gave it my all today. I acted with integrity. I did my best. That is a source of satisfaction that no one can take away from you. The second part of the verse is even more transformational. As working for the Lord, not for human masters. Again, let's view this through a psychological lens. Who is your audience? When your audience is your boss, your clients, or your colleagues, human masters, your work becomes a performance. You are constantly seeking their approval. Your sense of a job well done is dependent on their applause. But human masters are fickle. They have bad days. They have biases. They have their own pressures and priorities. Relying on them for your sense of worth is like building your house on the beach. The tide of their opinion will inevitably come in and wash it away. This ancient wisdom suggests changing your audience. What does working for the Lord mean in a modern, secular context? It means working for a higher purpose. For a principle. For your own internal standard of excellence. It means your ultimate report card isn't written by your manager, it's written by your own conscience. Your audience becomes integrity itself. It becomes your commitment to quality. It becomes the positive impact you hope to have on the world, no matter how small. When you adopt this mindset, your work is no longer about pleasing people. It becomes an expression of your own values. This fundamentally changes your relationship with both success and failure. When you succeed, the praise from others is a pleasant bonus, but it's not the source of your satisfaction. The real source is knowing you met your own high standard. And when you fail, or when your work goes unappreciated, it stings less. It's disappointing, sure. But it doesn't shatter your identity. Because your human masters didn't give you a passing grade, but you know, in your heart, that you did the work for a higher reason. You honored your own commitment to effort and integrity. The failure is an event. It is not you. This is the key to building a resilient sense of self. It's an inner anchor that holds you steady in the turbulent seas of the professional world. So, how do we put this into practice? It sounds good in theory, but what does it look like on a Monday morning when the pressure is on? The first step is awareness. You have to start noticing when you're falling into the trap. When you get a piece of praise, notice that rush of validation. Ask yourself, is this feeling disproportionately good? Am I letting this one comment define my entire day's worth? And when you face criticism, notice the sting. Ask yourself, is this hitting me so hard because it feels like a critique of my work, or a critique of me? Just by observing these patterns without judgment, you begin to create a little bit of space between who you are and what you do. The second step is to consciously diversify your identity portfolio. Remember the single stock analogy? It's time to invest in other areas of your life. What makes you you outside of your job? Maybe it's being a loyal friend, a loving parent, a curious learner, a passionate gardener, a weekend hiker, a volunteer at the animal shelter. You need to actively cultivate these other parts of yourself. Schedule time for them with the same seriousness you schedule a work meeting. When you have a rich, multifaceted identity, a setback at work is just one part of your life's portfolio, taking a temporary dip. It's not a total wipeout. Your sense of self is supported by many other strong pillars. A bad day at the office is balanced by the joy of cooking a meal for your family, the peace of a walk in the park, or the satisfaction of helping a friend. Your answer to, "Who am I?" becomes a long, interesting, and resilient list, and your job is just one item on it. The third practical step is to redefine success and failure. Our culture often defines success by external metrics, promotions, salary, public recognition. Start defining success for yourself on your own terms. Success could be mentoring a junior colleague. It could be maintaining a healthy work-life boundary and logging off at 5 p.m. every day. It could be learning a new skill, even if it's not directly related to your next promotion. It could be speaking up with an honest opinion in a meeting, even if it's not popular. These are internal wins based on your values, not external validation. Similarly, reframe failure. Failure is not an indictment of your character. It is simply data. What did you learn from that failed project? What information did that difficult conversation give you? How can you approach it differently next time? When you see failure as a teacher instead of a judge, it loses its power to define you. It becomes a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. Finally, practice genuine rest. One of the biggest symptoms of work-tied worth is the inability to rest without guilt. We feel that if we're not being productive, we are wasting time. We are losing value. You must intentionally practice turning off work mode and simply being. This doesn't just mean not checking your work email. It means not mentally optimizing your weekend. It means not turning your hobbies into side hustles. It means allowing yourself to be unproductive. To be still. To be playful. Your worth does not decrease when you are resting. In fact, your ability to do good work increases when you are well rested. But more importantly, your humanity is affirmed when you give yourself permission to exist outside the realm of productivity. This is a journey. Untangling your identity from your job isn't like flipping a switch. It's a practice. You will have days where an old insecurity flares up. You'll get caught up in comparison or chase after external validation. That's okay. That's human. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is a new direction. It's the gentle, consistent practice of reminding yourself, my value is not in my performance review. My value is not in my title or my salary. My value is not determined by my boss's mood or my client's feedback. My work is something I do. It is not who I am. My inherent worth is constant. It is stable. It is not up for negotiation. When you start to truly believe this, something incredible happens. You become better at your job. It sounds paradoxical, but when you release the desperate need for your work to validate you, you become free. You become more creative, because you're not afraid of your ideas failing. You become a better collaborator, because you're not seeing your colleagues as competition for a limited supply of validation. You become more resilient, because a setback is just a problem to be solved, not a judgment on your soul. You start to work with all your heart, not out of fear, but out of a genuine desire to contribute. You do it for your own internal standard of excellence, your own higher purpose. And at the end of the day, you can walk away from your desk, close your laptop, and be whole. Knowing that the person who goes home to their family, who meets their friends, who reads a book, who walks in nature, that person is who you truly are. And their worth? It was never in question.